My name's Sean, and I'm a grateful alcoholic. Sometimes. I want to thank you for asking me to be here. It's just really wonderful for us to be here. You've asked us a bunch of times, and thank you for being persistent and having us here. It's really terrific. I want to thank my three best friends, Unity, Recovery, and Service over there, for helping me up the stairs. And there's a whole island thing going on here. Have you noticed this island? We got the Long Island, and we got Rhode Island, and I was born and raised in Vancouver Island. Lorna's from the island of Manhattan, and Bonnie's from Cleveland. Oh, what a journey this is. I had the unique. I also want to thank you for allowing me to take my chip at the meeting on Wednesday night. It was that was really cool. That was really cool. I was 27 on April 24th, and yeah. So I can sit down. That's the message, you know. I mean, if a jerk like me can stay sober for 27 years, that's the miracle. I mean, you know, the only trouble with the miracle of sobriety is it's a real delicate miracle. You know, it's like a Fabergé egg. It's just dazzling, you know, but it's real fragile. And the longer I've been sober, the more I understand how fragile it is. We've been here a week. We got here last Saturday. I look like I've been here about 10 minutes because I can't go out in the sun. I'm one of those. I was one of those blonde, blue-eyed kids that got fried every summer through my childhood, and because of that, I have a little skin problem. Almost a year ago, my dermatologist sent me to the clinic, and so they gave me one of those wonderful little dresses with no back, and I sat there, and these 6 dudes came in and checked out my ear that would never stop bleeding, and they looked at it, and then they went away, and then one of them came back in, and he said, "Okay, now here's what's going on. We can either take the ear and most of the flesh around it off, or we can do 15 radiation treatments on it." And I said, "There's 6 of you and 1 of me. How much does my vote count?" You know. And they said, now, you know, if the treatment doesn't work, what we're going to do is we're going to take a mold of your ear before we start this so that we can build a prosthetic. I said, "God, you're just a million laughs, Doc. What else you got in mind?" You know. And he said, what we'll do is we'll build it, and then because we'll be able to attach it to your skull with magnets. I said, "Oh, I'm just thrilled with that one, Doc." Yeah. I said, "What do I do at night? Take it off and put it on the refrigerator?" You know, yeah. With a note that says, "Don't forget to pick up the laundry," you know. And then, you know, see, the wonderful thing about Alcoholics Anonymous is we got this bizarre sense of humor. And it just started to click in, and I said, "No, wait a minute, you know." I said, "You know, I could get a bunch of different ears. You know, I could get one with jewelry, and I could get a Spock ear. That'd be fun. You know, I could get, you know, and then, you know, when Bonnie's having at me, I can just take it off and say, 'Here, talking to this, I'm going to take a nap.'" This guy's eyes are getting like saucers, you know. So I said, "I tell you what, let's just stick my head in the microwave 15 times and let's do it." And so we did it, and at first it was okay, and then my ear started to, you know, turn to hamburger and ooze. It was really swell, and I started to get real scared, and then it got infected, and it looked like they were going to have to do that anyway, and then we got that fixed up, and so I got to tell you, I mean, you know, I'm an alcoholic, you know, so I'm thinking, what will people think? You know, I mean, you know, if you got to lose something to cancer, if you got to lose a body part to cancer, an ear ain't bad, but you know, it's kind of prominent on your face, and And so I'm thinking, well, you know, if it does come to that, and you know, and you know, I somehow get demagnetized and it keeps falling off or something, you know, I could do like the world's weirdest comb over, you know, just kind of flop it all over, you know. So I started letting my hair grow longer. I was also starting to think, you know, I wonder what I look like in a page boy, you know. I mean, I went through the 70s. I didn't look bad the first time in a page boy, so I'm letting the hair grow. Now, I got this one. You know, I got the Al-Anon, you know, and she leaves no thought unexpressed, let me tell you, you know. So she had a lot of opinions about what my hair was looking like. And then I got the 18-year-old daughter who's been raised in this program, and I mean, has got a mouth on her. I got the two of them. And so I'm letting my hair grow longer, you know, so I can kind of sweep it over the hamburger, you know. And it's getting a little swoopy here, a little flippy. And then I talked at a conference, and somebody told me I looked like Donald Trump, so I cut my hair. But I've been battling this skin cancer thing for a long time. It just kind of, you know, one of the gifts of sobriety. And you know, and in my kind of darkest moments, I thought, my God, you know, that's not going to be it. I mean, it's not going to be the year. That's not going to be. They're going to cut that off, and then they're going to find more, you know, and then, you know, they'll probably take, you know, a lot more off, you know. And I'll probably have to wear like a mask, like, you know, from the Phantom of the Opera, you know, kind of, you know, with a cape, you know, and they'll ask me to talk at conferences, and let's see. Look at him, isn't he wonderful? Look at him, you know. Lost half his face, and he's still here talking, you know. He slurps a little when he talks, but he's really fabulous. I am such an asshole, you know. I mean, you know, for my mind to go someplace like that, it's just bizarre, you know. And what it reminds me of is that I still need meetings. Because I suspect any normie would just kind of get through this the best they could without kind of speculating on hairstyles and capes and masks and stuff, you know. But that's the way I am. But the kind of the object of that story is, despite all the things that I was thinking of, I never once thought about drinking. And that's the miracle. It never once crossed my mind. I was angry, I was depressed, I was annoyed, I mean, a whole lot of things. But it never occurred to me that drinking would be a solution to that. And I come from a long line of alcoholics. I too come from a normal alcoholic home, an Irish Catholic. I mean, we invented the disease. I mean, you know, God gave us alcoholism to keep the Irish from ruling the world. That's it worked, let me tell you. The longer I've been sober, though, the terrible family secret has kind of come out. The terrible family secret is that we're not really Irish, we're Scottish. What we are is a bunch of Scottish mercenary Protestants that came over to Ireland to drive the Catholics out, and one by one married Catholic girls and ruined their lives. And so that's what we are. And let me tell you, I mean, if you think the Irish drink like pigs, you should catch the Scots. Oh man. Anyway, we drank. Our family, I mean, forget. The first time I got drunk was I was 12 years old, and I mean, I'd been uncomfortable all my life, and that night I found Southern comfort as well. Whoa, and you know, it just kind of, it was like taking a bite out of the thunderstorm, you know, it just kind of rolled all the way down, and there was this deep roll of thunder at the bottom, and I suddenly understood at a very deep level why my father was willing to go to jail so much. You know, it just, I mean, it warmed it all the way down, and it warmed all the way up. I mean, it was just fabulous, you know. And I came to, you know, several hours later, puking my guts out under a bush, and I could hardly wait to do it again. It was just stunning to me. It was just a revelation, a miracle. It was a miracle. That's what it was. And the thing that I think I caught that first night was the ability to instantly change. That's what was so fabulous about it, was that I could become somebody else in a moment. And I was, 12, 14. I mean, puberty looked like trouble to me, so I skipped it. I just, by the time I was 18 years old, I'd been getting drunk for 4 years. I'd been taking drugs for a year. I have to tell you, I am an impure alcoholic. I ingested a whole lot of outside issues, and I do apologize, but I had a hell of a lot of fun. So I was 18 years old, and I'd been drinking for 4 years, and I'd been taking drugs for a year, and I was in trouble. I was in trouble with the chemicals, but the idea of living without them was terrifying. And that's alcoholism, And I declared myself an alcoholic when I was 18 years old because I said the phrase that only an alcoholic says. And if you've ever said it, you're an alcoholic. If you're not sure you belong here and you've said this phrase, you belong here. If you've ever heard anybody say it, they belong here. And the phrase is, I can control my drinking. Social drinkers never deal with that concept because they got nothing to control. I mean, So I started at 18 years old on the great obsession of every abnormal drinker to control and enjoy my drinking. Now, I don't know about you, but I never got control and enjoy in the same room at the same time, ever. Ever. When I was controlling my drinking, I was miserable. Absolutely. Somebody suggests you drink 2 drinks a night. My first response is, how big are the glasses? And the only way that I've ever enjoyed my drinking is wildly out of control. I mean, I have never sipped anything in my entire life. The reason I'm standing here tonight is I loved to drink. Let's get that out of the way. I loved it. I loved the effect. I loved the ice cubes and I love stupid drinks and coconut shells with umbrellas. I love those intense intellectual conversations we got into at cocktail party. When we reappointed the Supreme Court. I love those meaningful relationships that sometimes lasted all night. My home group is Participation Group, Wednesday night in Vancouver, British Columbia. If you're ever there, please come and join us and visit us. We'd love to have you. We about a year ago we had a discussion on social drinking. Nobody in the room knew a goddamn thing about it. I don't know. I don't know what we were talking about. I mean, it was just a bunch of drunks talking about social drinking. And we came up with the idea that social drinking is, you have a couple of drinks and you don't write bad checks. You don't run down Main Street naked. You don't go to jail. You don't marry somebody you don't know. And it seemed like kind of a good idea, And then we thought, no, to hell with it. It wouldn't be any fun, When I first got to Alcoholics Anonymous and they said it was the first drink that got you drunk, I had a little problem with that because the first drink was medicine for me by the time I arrived in Alcoholics Anonymous. The first drink was the one that once that was down, I had a choice. Until that time I was dying. But then, you get the first one down, you just go, whack, and it goes, ah! And then you go, well, maybe I'll have a drink. Nah. No, yeah. But that was the medicine. That's the one that fixed me. That's what it did. So I got to be 21 years old and I decided I had a talent that the world couldn't live without. So I went to New York and I arrived there with $50 in my pocket and said, in 5 years you're going to know my name. And in 5 years a lot of people did know my name for a lot of the wrong reasons. But I did a bunch of Broadway shows and had a ball, and by the time I was in my mid-20s, I was drinking a quart of scotch a day, and I'd picked up a little non-habit forming marijuana habit, and I was working the docks, not where the ships come in. The doctors, I just love doctors. Well, they're so arrogant and they're so stupid, and it's so wonderful. You can just play them. So, one of the first things I've discovered about doctors is that they don't know how to say goodbye. The only way they get you out of their office is to write something, and if you give them the right information, they'll write what you want. And so I got a bunch of medical books and memorized symptoms, and would go and tell them, and they would give me things for my weight and my sleep and my staying awake and all kinds of wonderful stuff. And So I basically was, you know, living in the wonderful world of chemistry for a long time. And by the time I was in my mid-20s, I was in trouble. I was starting to go to moral superiors for my problems. I would go to, you know, priests and monsignors and nuns and Christian brothers and you know, psychiatrists and psychologists and social service people and gurus and spiritual leaders and trainers and gym guys and policemen, lawyers, and judges, and I would explain to them. I would explain to them my problem, and they would point to me. And some of them were very learned and compassionate people, and had lots of degrees and stuff. And they would say, "This is what you should do about your problem." Well, somebody points a finger at me and says, "This is what you should do about your problem." I tend to bite it off at the knuckle. I have a learning disorder. I drink too much. That's my learning disorder. And so nothing. I was looking around for solutions. I was in trouble. I was in trouble with the chemicals. So I decided that I needed to cut down my drinking, and what I needed was a good woman. And I found her in an elevator. And we were both going to do this show, and she was a little dancer, and I saw her the first day of rehearsal in her little leotard, and she was the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life, and she still is. And she didn't notice me right off the bat until 3 days later when my back went out, and I crawled into rehearsal kind of like this. I walked in, and zing went the strings of her heart, you know. For a pre-Al-Anon, you know, a drunk crawling across a hotel lobby was like coming home. We did that. We did the deadly eye lock, you know, where, you know, those Al-Anon tasers kind of, and she recognized potential, and I was dead. So we started our dance of death, and you know, she told you we were in the theater, and our friends called us the Campbell Soup Kids. We were the cutest kids in the block, and there was a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, and it was great. You know, there's a lot of that kind of thing in the theater. I love that. Every guy that I have ever 12-step, you know, the guy will say, you know, I'm an accountant, and there's a lot of drinking, and you know. I work in the sewers, and there's a lot of drinking. You know. It's odd. Wherever we are, there's a lot of drinking. So anyway, we did a national tour, which is an Actors Geographic, and we ended up in L.A., and we got married, and she settled down. And now I got to tell you, you know, I didn't marry somebody who didn't drink. I didn't know anybody who didn't drink. I wasn't going to marry anybody who didn't drink, and she drank. She drank like a fish. It was great, my 10 martini what the hell girl, you know? This great-looking blonde who could bash him back like I could. It was just great, and a little while after we got married, we were having cocktails, and she had a sip of hers and put it on the coffee table and said, "This is boring," and never drank again. She never went through withdrawals, nothing. She's not an alcoholic. She just said, "That's it, enough of that," and then she noticed that I drank. Man, did she notice. And then all hell broke loose, you know. Then we just, you know, we did that, you know, please don't drink at the party tonight, and you shouldn't be driving, and how did you get so drunk you only had one drink? You know, the whole dance, you know. And we've been raised in alcoholic homes, so we knew the choreography. I mean, we knew the whole, you know, how far you go before you say the thing that'll blow it all up, you know, and you hint at saying it and then you back off, you know, the whole thing, the whole emotional violence, you know, I've never been a physically violent alcoholic. I'm a card-carrying coward, and but I'm an emotionally violent alcoholic. I have a shark-infested mouth, and I've done a lot of damage with it, and it just got crazy. But somewhere along the line, drinking had ceased to be a luxury for me, and it was a necessity. And I had stopped bragging about what I was drinking. I was lying about what I was drinking, and but I had a certain amount of class and bravado, and I never hid my drinking. We lived in a house that you couldn't find. That's where I drank, and I made up a couple of rules for myself that I followed faithfully. right into the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. One of them was that I never drank before 5 o'clock in the afternoon, except on Sundays and holidays. And I always drank from a glass. That was very important to me because my father drank cheap wine out of a brown paper bag, and I knew if you drank like that, you were drunk. So I poured my cheap wine into a glass. And we do what we can to avoid coming to places like this, you know. It was just nuts. It was just insane. And on April 23rd, 1974, I blew my life apart, just destroyed my life. And had a series of revelations that I'm very, very grateful for. One of them was that I realized at a very profound level that I needed not to drink anymore. But I could not drink. That it had begun, I knew that it had gone somehow beyond my ability not to do it. And I also knew that my life as I understood it was over, but I was not going to die. And I never want to feel like that again as long as I live. And so the next day I went to work, and there was a woman that I'd been working with, and she had 6 years of sobriety, and she was fabulous. What a great dame Suzanne was. She was just a program of attraction. She was having a hell of a good time. She was in AA. She let anybody know that. And she just was successful and bright and funny and dynamite. And I said the last phrase at 11:20 in the morning on April 24th, 1974. I said, I'm an alcoholic. And I got 20 minutes before I go to pieces. And she heard the screaming. And she dropped everything. She canceled all her appointments. We were both in real estate at that time. And she canceled all her appointments. She shoved me into her car. She drove me to her place, sat me down at her dining room table, and she 12-stepped me. She 12-stepped me. Thank God for that. I got to experience that. She had the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous on her dining room table. She read Chapter 3, Chapter 5, and the 12 traditions. I thought, my God, that woman is going to read that entire book today. Then she told me her story. Now, my story was sleazy, but hers was disgusting. Whoa. And I thought, whoa, you know, if she cannot drink, Then she told me what Alcoholics Anonymous was about. She said, I'm going to be taking you to a meeting tonight. And I said, well, I've got some things. She said, I'm going to be taking you to a meeting tonight. And she explained to me what was going to happen at the meeting, what the people were like, that I didn't have to put $1 in the basket the first night. And you know what was going to happen, and I mean, she got me all prepared for it. And then she said, now you're going to start feeling some kind of anxiety, and so I've got a little something for you. And I said, oh, all right. And she poured me this huge glass of orange juice and Caro syrup. I can still taste it. And she said, that'll help. And I said, you know, Suzanne, I really understand it's the drinking. The drinking has just devastated my life, and I cannot drink anymore, and I understand that. But I have some other problems, and I'm under some medical supervision. And she said, let me explain something to you, honey. She said, this is what was told to me 6 years ago when I got in there. So this is 33 years ago. She got the information and passed it on to me 27 years ago. She said, we consider sobriety to be clean and sober. And I said, what exactly does that mean? And she said, that means we do not drink alcohol, nor do we take any self-administered mind-altering chemicals that affect us from the neck up. One day at a time. And I was real disappointed at that news. So she took me to my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and you got to get this picture. It was April 24th in Southern California in Hollywood. It was a rather warm night. I'd been drinking straight vodka the night before, but I was well-dressed, well-groomed, and had on a lot of lemon lime cologne, and I smelled like a gimlet. And the other thing that was going on was that I had newcomer eyes, and the only place you ever see eyes like that, other than on a newcomer in Alcoholics Anonymous, are on a dog loose on a freeway. I was terrified and cool. Terrified and cool. Angry and afraid. Don't touch me, but don't let go of me. Don't get so close, but don't go away. Don't pay any attention to me, but please do not ignore me because I am dying here. And I am trying very hard to look like I'm not dying. And thank God you guys had seen me before. Thank God you had seen me before. Because you sit down, it's going to be okay. You know? You got me half a cup of coffee. Because I was a little jumpy. I was coming off of a lot of stuff. But I was well dressed, by God. Had on a $250 sports jacket from Saks Fifth Avenue, French gabardine slacks, Italian loafers, and a designer tie. I'd been paid a great deal of money for a modeling job I'd done the week before. I was always cast as the nice young man next door, if they only knew what was going on next door. And I mean, the picture was absolutely dazzling, except for the fingerprint ink. You can't get that stuff off, you know. And I sat down in this meeting. There was about 400 people there. It was in a church basement with gray walls and a low ceiling. It was filled with smoke. And I was next to this African-American guy named Jimmy, and Jimmy had 25 years of sobriety and used to talk to the speaker. As the speaker was talking, Jimmy, if he liked what he said, would say, yeah, 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 yeah. And then we had birthdays. And we sing Happy Birthday in Southern California, and Jimmy loved to sing Happy Birthday, and they ain't all born with it. And he would say, Happy Birthday to you! And the guy sitting next to me at my first meeting, I didn't want anybody to know I was there. And this jerk is making more noise than you've ever seen in your life. And then there was a guy sitting next to me, and he started talking to me. And he was a toucher. He was one of those touchers, you know, those ones that put their hand on you and won't take it away as they talk to you and look at you in the eyes. And you go, oh my God. Oh no, I am in trouble. And he started telling me his story, and his story was exactly the same as mine. The first AA miracle. Out of 400 people in the first meeting that I ever went to, I sat next to the man who had exactly the same story as I did. What I didn't know is while Suzanne was 12-stepping me, she kept jumping up and running out of the room, and I thought she'd probably had some kidney damage based on her story. I didn't find out for months. As I was spilling my guts to Suzanne, she was talking to Jack in the bedroom on the phone. So of course his story was exactly the same as mine. He knew what my story was. Now the old-timers used to get away with that kind of crap by saying, more will be revealed. Thank God, there he was. You know, he became my sponsor. He taught me the 12 steps. Well, he shoved the 12 steps down my throat. I mean, we didn't discuss them a lot, and we did it. And I mean, oh man, oh, how many here are in your first year of sobriety? Put up your hand. Let me see. How many? Oh wow, super. How do you like it so far? Right? One of the reasons I have stayed sober for 27 years, and there are tons of reasons why, but one of the reasons is that I never want to get sober again as long as I live. It was the worst experience of my adult life. I hope your first year is hideous. I hope it is so horrible that you never want to do it again. It is I was going to be the first one to die from lack of sleep. I saw every movie that Russ Tamblyn made in Tokyo at 4 o'clock in the morning. Just twitching, just quivering. And I always wore kind of I wore my, you know, I dressed like this. I'm probably the only guy in 1,000 square miles tonight that's got a tie on. I dressed like this. So I was about 4 days sober, and they asked me to read chapter 5. And I read it, and the chairperson said it was the first time she'd ever heard it read in one breath. I was a little quick when I got it. Because I was detoxing. I was detoxing in these rooms, you know, and it was before the medical profession and the insurance companies discovered we were big business. You know, I'm so lucky for a drunk like me. I am so lucky. I got sober when AA was sleazy. I am so lucky. If it had any panache or chic, I'd have been dead. You know, I'd have become a role model at 6 months of sobriety, like, you know, like a movie star, you know. But I was so embarrassed to be in Alcoholics Anonymous for the first year and a half. I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't want to drink, but I didn't want anybody to know I was in AA. I mean, it was just, oh man, woo. And I was talking up there. The thing, we used to have marvelous things happen in AA meetings. Like people would have grand mal seizures, you know. Somebody would be up here at the podium talking, and somebody over there would go, you know. And your sponsor would jab you in the ribs and say, see, kid, you keep drinking, that'll happen to you. And you go, whoa, that kept me sober another day. Woo! You know, it was unbelievable. The first night I was sober, he told me to fold up my chair and empty my ashtray. And I've been in service ever since. You know, the first job that I got was washing cups. I couldn't, you know, I couldn't talk to anybody sober. I couldn't do anything sober. I went to work the next day after my first AA meeting. I didn't know you got a 28-day vacation, and I went to work, you know, because I needed to earn money. And about 3 months into my sobriety, my boss called me and said, Sean, you've been one of our best real estate salesmen. He said, you haven't been able to do anything. What's going on? I said, I'm an alcoholic and I'm sober and I got 3 months of sobriety all my life. And he said, oh, thank God. I thought it was something serious. I would go to work and hope and I just say, please God, don't let the phone ring. You know, the phone would ring. It was just, it was just awful. And I couldn't talk to anybody without something in my hand. So I bought Shasta Cola. Used to make something called Diet Red Apple, and I bought a case of it, and it was in my refrigerator. And I drank that for the first 3 months of my sobriety until I one day accidentally poured it into a glass, and it looked like transmission fluid. And I went to my sponsor and I said, listen, you know, Bonnie's gone to Al-Anon, and I'm in AA, and we've done way too much damage to each other, and I think we should go our separate ways. And he said, you're not going to make any emotional decisions in your first year of sobriety. And I said, but I'm not sure that I love her. And he said, I don't care about love. Work on good manners. And so there I was stuck with her, and I had to say please and thank you. And I mean, it was just, and she hated me, and I hated her, and yet we were nuts about each other and loved it. I mean, it was just awful. And I was going to these meetings, and when I was 6 months sober, 6 months sober. Oh, you remember 6 months sober? Oh, God. I was crazier than I'd ever been I was so crazy that my hair hurt. You know, just so nuts. You know, the wonderful, you know, doctors who know anything about alcoholism and have any ethics, there are a few around, and know that you can't double diagnose an alcoholic in his first year of sobriety. Because when you take away the drug, we manifest every psychological disorder known to man. I mean, I was clearly bipolar, you know. I mean, I was either running through the streets with the big book saying, you've all got to take the steps, or I was weeping in a corner of an Alano club, you know. I was just a little over the, you know, and the old-timers kept saying things like, you'll learn to live in the middle of your emotions, you know. I don't know what the hell they were talking about, but and they'd say, don't worry about it, kid, have another cup of coffee and a cigarette, and here's some candy. And, you know, because they knew that if you stop consuming large quantities of fermented sugar, your body is screaming for sugar. You know, so they'd pump you full of, I gained 35 pounds in my first year of sobriety. You know, I consumed gallons of ice cream. And 6 months, I was nuttier than a fruitcake, working, going to AA meetings, doing all this stuff, and driving up and down the freeway in Hollywood, screaming at the top of my lungs, just, sober, And I tried as best I could to sleep through my entire first year of sobriety. A whole day of reality was more than I could handle. I don't know about you, but so I took a lot of naps. And one day I was trying to take a nap. I was in sales, so I could do that, And when you're in sales, it means you just have problems with authority. That's all. But anyway, so I'm trying to take a nap, and I had my first spiritual awakening. I was just furious and just crazy. And I looked up at the ceiling and I said, "I don't believe in you, and I think you're a jerk!" And then it occurred to me, if I didn't believe, who was I yelling at? And then, being a good Irish Catholic, I waited for 3 weeks, And what it did was it broke a very old idea of God in me. It broke an idea of a God that was keeping score and up there and out, against me, and that I was, I was raised in a religion that if you thought about it, you'd done it, so you might as well do it, because you're going to hell anyway. I mean, it was just. I'm Canadian. I live in Canada. I'm a Canadian. Canadians are like unarmed Americans with health care. And we don't have a lot going on in Canada, so the big news a couple of weeks ago was Jesus looked Jewish. Oh yeah. There was a big picture on the front of our national paper of a reconstruction of Jesus. Some English scientist had gone and exhumed a first-century grave outside of Jerusalem and had taken the skulls and skeletons and, using police reconstruction, had reconstructed what these people looked like. And so they came up with this this picture. This is the front page of our picture of Jesus, and turns out he looked more like Dustin Hoffman than Michelle Pfeiffer with a beard. And I mean, that's tough stuff for an Irish Catholic kid. I mean, But the wonderful thing about finding a way to get to this God thing in Alcoholics Anonymous was your irreverence. I mean, you said stuff like that, and nobody got struck by lightning. As a matter of fact, sometimes your lives got better. People started having this kind of relationship with God that I had never seen in my life. A relationship that had a kind of ease about it, a kind of sense of humor about it. I mean, and you were, we found miracles everywhere. We found miracles in the most bizarre places. My odyssey in finding a spiritual thing. And if you're new, let me tell you, that's the big thing about this thing, is that sooner or later, you and I have got to come to terms with the idea of a power greater than ourselves that we're going to drink and use. It's that simple. It is that simple. And what we've got is we've got a structure that enables us to do that. They're called 12 steps. And they enable us to build a relationship with a higher power. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's Yahweh or Buddha or Jesus or whoever. It absolutely does, or Ra, or it doesn't matter. Once we come to that kind of realization that you and I are carrying around within us some kind of microchip that connects us to each other and ultimately to a power beyond ourselves, we remain strangers. We remained isolated. We remained unwelcome guests and foreigners until we can establish that. And I started to look for it in strange places. I started to come to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and listen to you achieving impossible things. Getting jobs, keeping relationships, having children come back, becoming functional members of communities, actually contributing to not only Alcoholics Anonymous, but to the world outside. things that were beyond somebody like me to do. Because what had happened with this terminal disease of alcoholism is my life had imploded. My life had seeped down into itself. Because when you're chronically ill, all you can think of is yourself. All you can think of is, how am I going to get better? How can I possibly get through another? How can I get through this? How can I had no time. I just didn't have the strength to worry about you before I got here. And you forced me to worry about you. You forced me to do it by doing things like, these three guys have been forced to do. They got to stand here and help speakers up and down from the podium, for Christ's sake. What a lame job that is, you know? But it's that kind of stuff, is that for a moment, those three jerks have got to be concerned about me, you know? One of the first things they made me do is they made me stand at doors and shake hands. I would have rather stood in front of a firing squad than stood at doors and shake hands. I hated every second of it. I did it every Sunday night, and I would stand there in my blazer and say, "Hi, my name is Sean." And you would shake my hand, and then you go, "Oh my God, his hand is all wet," you know. I just hated it. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing until I started talking from podiums like this, and I started talking all over Southern California. And I used to drive this little orange Honda Prelude. It was Bonnie's car, and she let me drive it. And I would drive it into the parking lot of some church, you know. And I knew a lot of people by then. And I'd drive in, and I hate walking into rooms full of people I don't know. It used to take me 4 belts of scotch to do it. I hate it. I hate it to this day. I hate walking into rooms with people I don't know. I'm painfully shy. I would love that to be like a psychological disorder. I'd love it to be something to do with brain chemistry, being shy. You know, I think we need another 12-step program. We've only got 498,000 of them. I think we should have another for shy people, SA. You know, they'd be real small meetings because people would be too shy to come, and they'd be real quiet because nobody would say anything. But shyness is not a psychological disorder. What shyness is extreme self-obsession. I'm so concerned with the impression that I'm going to make on you and the fear that I won't make any kind of impression on you that I'm not going to come in the room. That's all. You know, I'm just not going to be there. But anyway, so I would drive into the parking lot and I'd sit in my car and you'd think, "Oh, Sean's getting a spiritual message together. Isn't that lovely? Look at, he's meditating." You know, and what I was doing, I was sitting in the car saying, "You got to get out of the car, Sean. They've seen you. You can't drive out now. They know you're here, you know. You got to get out of the goddamn car, you know." So I would get out of the car and I'd walk across the parking lot, which felt 5 miles wide, you know, and I would get to the door and some poor jerk whose sponsor made him do it would be standing at the door. And he'd say, "Hi, my name is Fred." And he'd stick out his hand and he would take my hand and he would pull me through the door. And that's an act of love. And he didn't know he was doing it. And I didn't know I was doing it when I had to do it either. But that's what it is. And that's when we look like God. I believe we are created in the image and likeness of God. I don't believe it's the way we look. If it was, we'd all look the same. And there's some different looking folks here tonight. But I believe we look like God when we're helping each other out. I think we look like God when some little old lady says to some punk 15-year-old who's pierced everywhere and tattooed, "Come sit next to me, dear." I think she looks like God when she does that. I think when the guy gets on the bus and goes across town to central office and gets a box full of literature and then gets back on the bus and brings it back to the meeting, I think he looks like God. I can see the family resemblance. I can see it when the lady gets here, you know, an hour and a half before the meeting to make sure the coffee's on. I can see how she looks like God. I can see the family resemblance. I can see it all over the place. See, I think that's what God's about. I think God's about loving. I think that's when we most resemble it. And that's when we most resemble each other. That's when we look like a family. And I love when you do that to me, when you're inclusive and you're helpful. 5 years sober, I blew my life apart because I was Captain Sobriety by then. I was sponsoring guys, and I started looking at the fence lines of my sobriety, and I went to the very edges of it. And I ripped my life to shreds. I didn't drink, but I ripped it to shreds, and Bonnie told you that scene and what happened, and we started rebuilding our marriage and rebuilding our lives, and I went back to working the basics. It happens to a lot of us between 5 and 7 years sobriety. We start looking at the oldest ideas we've got, because a lot of the character defects have just miraculously gone away because we're not drinking. And then some of them God removes like a sliver, and then the other ones God cuts up with a dull stone knife and no anesthetic, and those are our coping skills, those are the ones that we've been using for so long that no longer apply, but we can't give up. And so we started building, and when I was 8 years sober, my darling Kate was born. Kate's my daughter. And when I was 10 years sober, we were asked to speak on the North Shore of Oahu, and we went as a family. Kate was 2 years old, and we went, and Hawaii provided me with a memory that I will hold in my heart until the day that I die. Kate was 2 years old, and she was running in and out of the surf, this little red-headed girl giggling and laughing, and I stood there, and I was standing in the middle of a dream, just standing in the middle of a dream. I didn't know that I could be in as beautiful a place. I didn't know that I could love this much. I didn't know that love expands, and I didn't know that everything was possible. And it was the most miraculous moment of my life up until that point. And things went on. Life got good, and life got scary, and life did everything. See, because this is not just a journey, this Alcoholics Anonymous thing. This is an adventure. And an adventure, a really great adventure, has really terrific parts and really, really lousy parts. That's what makes it an adventure. That's why there's the high highs and the low lows and the stuff that goes on. And that's what makes this life exciting, and that's what makes it worthwhile. And when I was 15 years sober, we got to move to Vancouver with high hopes for a career and for a new life, and Kate was just going into first grade, and it was a great opportunity for her, and we went up there, and within 5 years it had shattered, and we were scrambling, and it was going on and on and on, and there was I had a lot of trouble in the work area, and the last 5 years have been just the last 5 years have been really real, let me tell you. It's I've had health problems, as you know. The work situation was off and on, and then I got into a business, and I started a business, and it seemed to have a great deal of promise and go very well, and then it didn't. And I started trying to fix it. I started writing checks to fix it, and pumping money into it, my own personal money, and it just didn't die. It just didn't blow up. It just kind of slowly capsized and kind of slid under the waves. It took a long time to die, and I wasn't telling Bonnie how bad it was because I was going to solve the problem. I didn't want to upset her and scare her, so what I decided I would do was I would fix the problem and then tell her what the problem was, and the problem kept getting bigger. And when I wanted to put the third mortgage on the house, Bonnie said, "What the hell is going on?" And I told her. And Al-Anon has helped her get in touch with her feelings. And she tore a strip off of me and poured gasoline on it. And we had to make some really fast decisions. We had to sell the house instead of going bankrupt, and we downsized. And Kate was going into high school, and we were hitting 50, and oh man, she was going into puberty, and we were going into menopause, and oh my God. And I mean, it was just nuts. And then I applied for a job and got a job as the manager of Central Office in Vancouver, which is the sober equivalent of being a Korean comfort woman. It was a nightmare that never seemed to end, and it blew up in my face, and it was absolutely hideous. And I thought, what the hell is going on? God, I know you're really busy in Bosnia, but I need a break. I'm dancing as fast as I can. I'm working the program as fast as I can. My wife loathes me. My kid thinks I'm crazy. Nobody wants to hire me. I'm dead broke. We're going under. What the hell is going on here? So I went to my doctor. And he said, in the meantime, my mother's dying. My dear old sainted Irish mother is dying. I go to see her on a Sunday. She says, nobody's been here to see me all week. I said, Ma, I was here on Wednesday. She said, oh, you. So finally, Mama dies. I got another job, and nothing. I'm not feeling anything. I'm sleeping too much. I'm eating too much. I don't feel anything. I go to the doctor, and he says, "What's been going on the last year?" And I told him, and he went, "I've got a doctor from Thailand. His eyes got like saucers." He said, "What?" So he gave me like a sheet, and he said, "Fill this out." And I filled it out, and he said, "You have classic clinical depression." I said, "What can we do about it?" And he said, "Well, there's medication." I said, no, not yet. Let's see what else we can do. So he took a blood test. The blood test came back, and my body had stopped producing serotonin. Stopped. Nothing. Serotonin is the thing that enables you to feel pleasure. He said, "You've been working so hard at being well for so long that you've burnt it all out." I said, "Okay, what do we do with it?" So he put me on a whole bunch of herbs and vitamins and all that kind of stuff. And I'm coming back, and I'm being okay. I'm doing all right. And so I applied for this job. I'm going in to apply for jobs. I'm 58 years old, I'm going in, sitting down with job interviews with guys whose skin hadn't cleared up, And they're trying to think, how do I say no to my grandfather? Oh, man. I mean, they're not hiring guys like me. They're retiring guys like me. And I'm going in, getting up and suiting up and showing up and working the program and being the best goddamn guy in Vancouver. So there's an ad in the paper. You can't get a job out of an ad in the paper. Everybody knows that. That's what they have seminars about. You can't get a job out of an ad in the paper. So I went on this interview. So the guy looks at me, and we started talking. And they needed somebody in his mid-50s because the group of people that I deal with are all over 40, and they need to be taught technology. I said, "What?" They needed to be, and so I do seminars showing people how to use email and attachments and do business over the internet and all that kind of stuff. And I start off each presentation saying, if it weren't for my 6-year-old daughter, my VCR would still be flashing 12. And all these people go, "Oh, thank God!" It's not some 22-year-old who's going to jam gigabytes down their throats, and they like me at my job. And Bonnie's job is getting real exciting. Bonnie's going into a brand new field. And we've been working really, really, really hard. And then you guys asked us to be here, and we said maybe we'll make it a couple extra days. And so we got here. And we've been having a wonderful time. We've been walking on the beach, and we walk up to Starbucks, and we have our coffee and read the paper, and then we come back, and we sit by the pool. I sit in the shade. She sits out there. And then we go have lunch, and we go have a nap. I'm into the siesta thing. I like the siesta thing, And then we go eat, and then we go to the movies, and then we come back, and we're asleep by 9:30. I mean, and every day we say we should go to the volcano. And one of us says, "Screw the volcano. Let's just go to... Let's just go to Starbucks." And my dazzling, darling daughter is in Spain. We email back and forth. We go down there, and the gift that you've given to us is the ability to be parents to her. She's an extraordinary young woman. She's full of joy. She's full of self-worth, and she thinks she's fabulous. When she was 6 years old, she announced to me, "I'm the best artist in my class." And I said, "Really, honey, who told you that?" And she looked at me and she said, "No one." I was in my mid-50s. I can't say that about any area of my life, So I emailed her today, and we learned how to be parents in Alcoholics Anonymous from the parents in Alcoholics Anonymous. We learned how to be husband and wife from the husbands and wives in Alcoholics Anonymous. We learned everything here. And at the end of the email today, I said the line to her that I've said to her ever since she came into my life. At the end of the email, I said, if they lined all the kids in the world up in a great big long line and I got to pick the one that I want, guess who I'd pick? You, of course. And she knows that. She knows that. You can get an idea of the quality of life that I have by the company I keep. Bonnie is an extraordinary human being. She is just really fabulous. She's an Al-Anon. I love Al-Anons. I love Al-Anon so much that I don't go to Al-Anon meetings Because I think Al-Anons need a safe place from somebody like me. I'd just go in there like a weed eater. Because I do my little boy lost act and get them all whipped up. It's just, it's really bad news. Bonnie has Al-Anon parties over at our house every once in a while, and I love this about her parties. An Al-Anon party is like 15 Al-Anons come over to the house and split a bottle of wine. And and then when the party's over, they argue over who's going to take what's left home. No, I can't take it home. I have an alcoholic at home. No. Well, maybe I know. And they go back and forth, 20 minutes, and finally one of them says, "Oh, here, I'll take it." And as she's walking out the door, the other 14 go. My sponsor is Milton Merle. He's a wonderful guy, and he and his wife Ruby and Bonnie and I go out for dinner a lot. And Ruby and Bonnie are the silliest people I've ever known in my life. And we go out to dinner, and occasionally they'll say, "Why don't we split a beer?" And then they argue for 20 minutes. "Well, I don't know. We had one 3 weeks ago. I don't know." And they go back and forth. And finally they do it, and they split it. And then Ruby says, "Too warm," and she puts an ice cube in hers. And Milton and I are looking at each other. We've been sober a long time, and it drives us crazy. Occasionally, Bonnie will have a couple of drinks, a couple of glasses of wine. I mean, she'll really go over the top. And we'll be driving home, and she'll be sitting there, and she'll say, "I'm loaded." Now, I have lived with this woman for 33 years, and she still has to tell me she's loaded, because I can't tell. She is exactly the same loaded as she is sober. I mean, it's the stupidest. I don't even know why she bothers. It's the stupid. And then as soon as she makes the announcement, she goes. And then I have to wake her up when we get home. She's just a hoot. She is just a hoot. She is the best. She is the best. And so are you. And I'm really glad to be here. God bless you.